Good morning and welcome to the Extended Disc webinar. 30-minute webinar this morning. We'll be doing it on how to make DISC part of your organization's culture. My name is Christina and I'm one of the senior trainers here at Extended Disc, and I'm here with my boss, Markku Kauppinen. He's the president and CEO of Extended Disc North America. Welcome.
Hi, Christina. Good to see you again.
Yes, we're meeting on a regular basis at this point, aren't we?
That's right.
Just to let you know, just a couple of housekeeping, we're just going to record this webinar and it will be on our VIP site along with the PowerPoint if you just need to go back and take a look at it or share it with any of your counterparts. We won't have time for questions today because the webinar itself will be short, but please feel free to go ahead and just type it in and we will follow up and get back to you and get that question answered. So let's get started. Hold on. Okay, so Markku, what was it that made you choose this particular topic, making this part of your organization's culture?
Well, when we think about the webinar topics, I try to think of questions that come up fairly frequently, and this question comes up from trainers and consultants and also internal facilitators. Hey, I'm conducting a workshop and people really love it. People really love this. They like to learn about who they are. But we're really, of course, trying to create value for the organization. How can we make it stick? And also, just a couple of weeks ago, I was in Denver at the ATD conference, where trainers, facilitators, I think about 12,000 of them all around the world, come together once a year to talk about what is the latest and greatest. But we've been doing this for 19 years. And this topic of how do we actually make training stick and how do we can make DISC part of our culture is a topic that comes up all the time. So that is the reason I wanted to talk about it today.
Okay, great. So, it's a great concept to talk about incorporating DISC into our culture, but we know there's challenges. Can you talk about some of the challenges?
Well, the challenges are in a sense that and it isn't, by the way, it's not unique to just DISC training. It's really training in general. But what a lot of times happens is that the DISC session becomes an event. People certainly love learning about who they are. It's always fun to read about the most important person in the world. It's informative, it's fun and entertaining. But then at the end of the session, we have all these great intentions. We make these plans. We have a, maybe written action plan, what I'm going to do. But then the very next day after the training, you go back to work. Back to the reality.
So true.
So what happens when you go back to work? Guess what? You got a ton of emails waiting for you. You have voicemails in your phone. Your customers are calling. You have to get caught up with your coworkers. So you basically go back to your normal routine. First day you're in a caught up mode, and then what happens is we actually don't begin to use what we learn. And the assessment sometimes just gets filed away and it's forgotten. Maybe you talk about it a little bit, hey, I'm an I style, remember, what style were you again? But really nothing significant has happened in terms of helping us change behaviors. We always need to keep in mind why we are doing this. The ultimate goal is for people to become more successful by creating a better, more confident self-awareness, learning to identify the styles of others, and of course, modifying behaviors, how we communicate, how we sell, how we lead others. That is what we're really after. And really to make that happen, it needs to become part of the culture.
Yeah. And again, we talk about, we all want to do it, but how do we start going about saying, okay, we want to make this part of a culture? How do we do that? How do we get started?
Well, I want to talk about a couple of things today. One of the things that I realize sometimes is not possible, but it really would be very, very important to get the top management involved. Because if the top management is using DISC, and then what happens is the message becomes very clear, because these folks typically are successful people. If employees see that the top executives are making this part of their daily routine, they are talking about different DISC styles. My colleague is this style, my prospect or client is certain DISC style. And then it makes it very clear for employees that it's important for them. I better make it important for me. And if it's possible to get the top management, and again, Christina, I realize this is tough. Sometimes they do not get involved. But if they really communicate to the organization, and this is why this is important, and this is what we will do, this is what we invest in you, so you learn this, and what is expected of you. When that message is clear, it makes such a huge impact on what's going to happen and how people will actually implement the DISC. And if they do this, then top management needs to use this language daily with others. They're talking about D styles, they're talking about I styles, they're talking about how they're modifying behavior. If everybody sees that, it makes a tremendous impact. But I'm going to talk about in a moment what makes even more significant impact.
Okay, so top down, incorporate DISC into the language of the organization.
That's exactly it, because when they're using the language, then everybody will adopt the language. It becomes, like we're talking about the topic, it becomes part of the culture. This is how we do things here.
Makes total sense to me. So you kind of like were leading into something else that is even more important or critical in terms of getting DISC into the work. So what is that?
Well, we are talking about each and every manager. Each and every manager plays a critical role in making this part of the culture. And the reason is that their employees, when they know what the manager expects, they know what he or she is looking for, that will make certain that it will become part of their daily focus. The saying goes that people don't quit the organization, they quit their manager. And the reason is that manager has such a huge impact on their professional and sometimes in personal life, because sometimes, if we don't like what we're doing, we're going to talk about that at the dinner table, so it can have a huge impact. And there's one thing, Christina, that the managers need to do. And it's very simple, and I'm going to talk about some variations and some further elaboration on that. But if they ask this one question frequently, it will make all the difference. And that question is, what DISC style is that prospect that you met with? What DISC style is that customer? What DISC style is your colleague? When they keep asking this question frequently, it will ensure that the employees will understand that this is something that he or she expects. And when they know there's an expectation, they will make certain that they will pay attention to it. Because too often what happens is we go to a training program. It might be fantastic content.
Yes.
But then when I go back to work, I return my calls and respond to my emails. But then the routine kind of begins to happen again.
Yeah.
But if I realize that my manager is not paying attention to this, even without thinking about this, I stop paying attention to it. There are always exceptions. Somebody really, hey, this is something that can help me, and they start using it. But most of the time, if the manager is not paying attention to it, it's forgotten because, hey, next month something else, some other training program is going to come along. Maybe that is what's really going to stick. And if the manager is not paying attention to it, it just fades away.
Okay.
And this question that we just talked about, it should be asked not only one-on-one, but also in meetings. And when you're asking this question in meetings, then the team will start talking about it. And then we'll talk about coaching in a moment, but it also becomes like a coaching moment for everybody because people start having a conversation. Okay, tell me what happened on that sales call. Tell me what happened with that customer. What style was that? This style was that customer. And when that conversation happens, again, it just becomes part of the routine, and it really virtually guarantees that it will become part of the culture.
So just in summary, main critical question that managers need to ask, what is someone's DISC style?
If you want to walk away with one thing from this webinar, that's the thing. That's the question we need to ask. Now, you can't ask that same question in the same words every time because then you sound like a robot. And we talk about some specific follow-up things you can talk about. But that is the most important question. Because when the employees, again, when they understand that he's looking for that, she's looking for that, I will make sure I pay attention to it.
Yeah, I would if my manager said that. So can it be as simple as asking this one question when you're just asking someone's DISC style? I mean, what else can we do?
Well, there are several things we can do. Yes, this question is important because it communicates its importance, but there are some other things. I'm going to share a few.
Okay.
One thing, just a simple sort of visual reminder could be this. And you can have a little flip chart paper, and if the manager plots his or her employees on this little flip chart paper, hangs it on his or her office wall, it's a powerful reminder, not only for the manager, but for the employees. It's a very simple thing, but if you're a manager, one thing will happen. For example, if I'm going to have a conversation with one of my employees, and before I head out of my office and have a conversation with somebody, I'll take a quick look at this and say, okay, I'm about to have a conversation with an I style. What do I need to do differently? If I'm going to have a C style, what are the adjustments I need to make? It always keeps it just front of my mind,
Yes.
and make sure that it happened. Actually, let me tell you a quick story that happened this week. It was quite interesting. As you know, Christina, we had a new employee start here on Monday.
Yep.
And when she got here, we just took care of some paperwork. Basically, you have to fill out, some tax forms and other kind of forms, and as going to introduce her to everybody in the team and walked around the office, showed where everything is, and then I had to attend to some of my daily routines, my emails, my phone calls, and she spent the rest of the day with the other team members over here. But toward the end of the day, she came to my office and asked me, said, Markku, do you have some of that flip chart paper? I didn't just really think about a lot about the question, but sure, let's go to the storage room and I'll let you get you one. And I gave her one, and off she went. Next morning, on Tuesday, I walked into her office and just wanted to kind of see how was your first day. Guess what? She had one of these on her wall. Well, of course, here we at Extended Disk is a big part of what we do. However, on that first day, she and I did not talk about disk. We talked about some paperwork and then introducing to other people. I didn't even realize she noticed that I had this on my wall.
Yeah.
But
we notice about our boss, let's just say.
Well, see, there's an example. If your employees see that this is something important for the boss, they will begin to pay attention to it. So that's just one simple way to make sure that, hey, this is important and this is something we need to use.
Yeah, I mean, I even look at it and I know what it is. I know what it says, but it's a constant reminder. It just says, okay, think again, whose style is where. So visual reminders for us visual learners, very important. So again, just going back to that primary question that you had presented, what managers can ask about. What else can a manager do to help their employees ask and understand that particular question?
Well, it's of course important to ask that question, but it's not enough. Because if you just ask that question and employees are not really equipped to answer that question.
Exactly.
I mean, yes, they had a great training session, but we forget a lot of that fairly quickly. Manager needs to coach the employee to help them answer that question. And I'll share a couple of things. There's one easy way to help your employees, if you're a manager, to help them identify the styles of other people. Okay. Now, they know it's important. They want to do it well. Here are two questions that every employee could ask. And of course, the manager can coach with these questions. First question is the person more active or reserved? And Christina, what we're talking about here is what kind of things a person talks about. In other words, I meet somebody, I begin to pay attention what they talk about, tonality, what kind of eye contact they have. Are they more assertive and animated, or a little bit more kind of reserved with their body language? And when I begin to pay attention to that, I can fairly easily answer this question. Is this person more active or reserved? The second question is this person more task or people-oriented? In other words, what does this person talk about? Are they talking more about people, team members, organization, culture, those kind of things? Or are they talking more about numbers, figures, processes? Do they show emotion, or are they a little bit more difficult to read in terms of what they are feeling? Do they focus more on just talking about tasks? Very simple to pay attention to those two things. And you can identify if this person is more task or people-oriented. Now, as a manager, I can just help my employees to put those two things together. If I'm dealing with somebody who's more reserved, more people-oriented, guess what? I'm probably dealing with S style. And it's easy for employees to remember these two questions, and they become very quickly a habit. But 3-4 weeks, when you start paying attention to this, it's a habit. Then it's part of who you are.
Yeah. So two very simple questions that help support that primary question. How do I identify the disk style of someone? So any other ways a manager can communicate that the disk tool is important?
Well, there's a couple of fairly simple ways. We need those reminders. We talked about the flip chart paper, which is obviously very simple yet powerful. It's a subtle reminder, and everybody now can see firsthand that it really works. But other things that you can do to make sure that it does not become out of sight, out of mind. One thing that we use, and I see a lot of our clients now use, is that in their CRM system, they have a field for every customer, every prospect, for the DIS style.
Mm-hmm.
So when they are meeting, maybe they have a face-to-face meeting, which it's always easier to identify somebody's style. After that meeting, they go to the system and they know, hey, this person is an I style.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's an IS style. The more information we can provide, more helpful it is not only for that person, but other colleagues that they may have. A lot of times we don't have the face-to-face meetings, and then we have to really pay attention when we are talking to somebody on the phone. Kind of questions they ask, the tonality,
Mm-hmm.
how much they talk, what they talk about, and always encourage people to look for patterns of behavior. Phone call, you can look for certain things and get pretty confident identification of somebody's style, but look also for their emails.
Mm-hmm.
If I get an email from somebody, even before I read the first word, if I need to notice I need to scroll down, I'm probably not dealing with a D or I, probably an SOC style. If it's very short, more likely a DI style. So we'll start looking for those patterns, and we enter that information in the CRM. Sometimes there are cases when it's a little difficult to identify somebody, especially if you don't have a lengthy interaction. Sometimes what I encourage people to do, put something in there.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I followed by a question mark. Next time I have an interaction with this person, I can look there. This person might be an I. I need to look for more clues to really more confidently identify who they are.
Yeah, I think it helps me when I see a DIS style. It just almost reminds me of who I was communicating with, interacting with. It gives me back a picture, if because we talk to so many different people, right?
That's right. And really what happens is that when that information is in there, mm-hmm. it makes everybody's lives easier.
Yeah.
And when lives get easier, it's motivating.
That's all about.
So if you go there, hey, of course I need to know who I'm talking to, what their name is, what their title is, what organization is. But hey, I'm about to have a conversation with an I style. Now I'm prepared. Mm-hmm. At the end of the conversation, I've realized I had a better conversation with this person. It's more productive. We move forward with the next actions with this person. And it just provides that reinforcement. I want to do this again.
Exactly. Anything else?
We certainly have a lot of support materials. I don't want to make this a commercial, but I'm going to share a couple of things that are used so often. And by the way, I think we have a website there at the end of the webinar. You can look up some more materials. But without the doubt, I would say the most popular support tool is the Quick Reference Card. It's amazing to me that I've been doing this almost 20 years, and I find myself when I'm talking to somebody on the phone, when I'm on the phone, I like to talk standing up. I have a headset on. I realize sometimes I'm walking around in my office talking to somebody holding one of these silly cards on my hand.
Yeah, I always have it around.
So yeah, because sometimes it gives you that specific word that you're looking mm-hmm. for. I need to remember that I styles are this, or C styles I need to not to do this, because it helps us to identify the styles, but it also provides some quick ideas what to do and not to do with the different styles. And when you flip it over, then you can get some help in how to communicate with these different styles. So as we go to our client sites, we see this on their desks and mm-hmm. people carrying their briefcases. Very simple yet practical tool that is a very powerful reminder that this stuff is helpful and important.
Yeah, I think it's one that you will use over and over again.
Yeah, it's like I said, clearly the most popular tool that we have. And maybe the second one, because it's so popular, I want to share is the self-development guide, that it provides more information about the DIS styles. It provides information about how to identify the styles of others, and then how to modify a communication style. I look at this as a Cliff Notes to DISC. You can read it in about 15, 20 minutes, and not only enhances your knowledge, but you can refer to it very quickly. I still use it because there are some things that, what happens with anything is that sometimes we fall into our comfort zone.
Yeah.
When in DISC, when you fall into a comfort zone, in essence, what happens is that we go to autopilot with our behavior. We are not modifying our behavior. Mm-hmm. And it's easy for everybody to do, including me. Sometimes I just don't make those adjustments. But these are the kind of reminders I use for myself. And then when managers make these tools accessible for the employees, it makes their lives again easier.
Yeah, I think this is my go-to as a trainer. I'd use it, highly recommend it for managers as well. But, we're always looking for more specific ways managers can help their employees use DIS. Anything else you can think of that a manager could do to help their employees?
Well, managers really obviously they need to ask that question, but they also need to help their employees to become more fluent and more comfortable using this. It's essence coaching that they need to do. Sometimes when managers get new training that they attend to, and now they have this kind of a to-do list to do, they might feel not all that enthusiastic about it because everybody's time is limited and we have so much to do already.
Yeah.
But the good thing about it and sort of a nice thing about DISC is that it doesn't take a lot of time. It's easy. Only thing you have to do is practice a little bit in the beginning, and then it becomes part of who you are. And when you start practicing it consistently, everybody's lives get easier. So here are some of the things that the manager in their critical role can do to help the employees. So for example, when a manager is talking with their employee about that, let's say, recent interaction with a prospect, well, ask that employee, that salesperson, to list some specific examples how they identify the prospect style. So what will happen is the employee has to, in essence, relive that situation and really pay attention to what they were looking for. Did they look at their office space? Did they pay attention to the tonality, body language? Did they have photographs on the walls? These kind of things. You begin to look at those patterns of behavior. And when you are listing those examples and you relive that moment, it makes it easier for you to do it next time. Also, focus on and talk about what did that person talk about? What did they say? What kind of words they use? Did they more talk about we as a team or more focused on I words? Those are very powerful and helpful clues to identify somebody's style. And as a manager, we need to remind our employees how to do that. This is one of my favorites. Focus on the type of questions a person asks. If somebody's asking a lot of, let's say, how questions, we probably deal with an S style. If there's a lot of why questions, we probably with a C style. It's a very kind of an easy way to identify somebody's style. Also, very important, body language and eye contact. And finally, tonality. So manager needs to ask the employee, tell me about that experience. What happened? Let's talk about tonality. Let's talk about the kind of questions you ask. Very helpful in coaching an employee to become more successful using this and therefore also making part of the culture.
Okay. So, we talk about DISC, but you also talked about, DISC itself when we kind of walk away from an interaction and we want to debrief it. You talked about some specific questions I know in the past. Could you just kind of revisit those?
Specific questions? Well, yeah, there's when you going to have that debriefing of an interaction, some of the specific questions are, for example, and this is a good one because we so often focus on identifying who somebody is. But ask, did you identify which one of the 4 DISC styles was least comfortable for that person? A lot of people have 3 DISC styles that are quite comfortable for them. And in those situations, the 4th one typically is quite uncomfortable for that person. Give an example. Somebody might be ISC style. It's a fairly common profile.
Yeah.
For those individuals, typically their D is not very comfortable at all. And when I'm interacting with a person like that, what might be the most important thing to focus on is stay away from D behaviors. And when you ask this specific question as a manager, your employees will remember that then. And once you notice that, and you notice the power of staying away from that one behavior, I promise you will use it. Some of the other things you can really do is when you're debriefing an interaction, talk about and ask the employee to give some specific ways how they modify their behavior in terms of communication, influencing, etc. Now you again have to think about what did you do, and you can also go back to thinking about, let's move that next bullet point there. There we go. What adjustments worked? Now I'm thinking about what did I do as a salesperson, as a customer service representative, and what worked, and also what did not work.
Always.
What did not work so I can learn from my mistakes. Identifying somebody's style is not exact science. Typically takes a little bit time to really carefully observing them, and we kind of making adjustments to our initial identification. I think that's person IS. Second thought, I think it's more of an SI. And now I have more confident identification who they are, and I can make better adjustments. And in that process, until I get there, I might make some mistakes, and I can learn from those. Also think about this. Maybe the manager should ask, what could you have done more successfully? If you had done something like this, what do you think the outcome would have been? Powerful coaching question to make sure that they've become more comfortable with it. What did I learn from the interaction? Always want to learn something, and just get one takeaway so you can be more successful in the future. And as a result, is there anything you will start doing and stop doing in the future? That's a very important thing to focus on as well.
Okay. So up until this point, we really have been focusing on how critical the role of the manager is in bringing DISC into the organization. But anything else about the organization as a whole, just to revisit?
Well, we talked in the beginning of this webinar that getting the top management support is critical and important. I know sometimes you just don't get it, but in an ideal world, that's what you would hope to see. And the reason is that we've been focusing a lot on the manager asking these questions, to really making sure that their employees realize that this is important. This is something I expect. But when you look at the entire organization, there are many levels of managers. There are lots of managers typically in a large organization especially. And if you, let's say in this example, stay on these three front level managers, they are doing their best to encourage their people to identify the styles of others, modify their behavior. Well, if they're not getting that reinforcement from their boss, this challenge is more difficult for them. But if their boss is expecting the same things, guess what? They're going to do it as well. It becomes a habit for them as well. If it goes all the way up the ladder to the very top executives that they're using it, it will become part of the organizational culture. I remember working with this one bank, it's been a while, in the retail banking division. You have all the branches out there. The head of the retail division was an extremely talented person, one of the most impressive people I ever met. And he was very good at modifying his behavior when it came to the branch level employees. Under his division, I believe there was about 5,000 employees. And it was amazing. The busy man. He was amazing with the branch level employees. He would modify his style. He'd talk more, talk less, body language. He could match and mirror that like no one I've seen. For some reason, he did not do that with his direct reports. He had, I believe, like 6 or 7 regional managers who he could not do that behavior, and created a fairly toxic environment for those managers. Now, those regional managers, they did not therefore
didn't trickle down.
Did not trickle down with their branch managers. Branch managers were doing a pretty good job with their tellers and personal bankers modifying their behavior, but the challenge became harder because the top manager did not do it with his direct reports, and it kind of stopped there. He somehow skipped that one level of management, making it much harder for the branch manager to do this and make it part of the organizational culture.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you. So just in summary, again, top-level management is ideal. Managers are critical when it comes to making DISC a part of the organization. Thank you, Markku. Any last thoughts?
Well, here's one thing. When we've been talking about work life here, and this is not always an appropriate for a manager to bring up, but if it is, it's a powerful question. Hey, are you using this stuff at home?
Yeah.
If they have kids, what DISC style is your son? Oh, he's a D. So how do you modify your behavior with your son? How about with your significant other? When they start using this at home, and with the most important people in their lives, that's powerful. That's you making an impact. When they see this thing working at home, guess what? They will use it at work as well.
Very powerful. Thank you. Next webinar, thank you for joining us today. We actually do have a next webinar scheduled. It'll be Wednesday, July 13th. Again, it's a 30-minute webinar, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And the topic will be Leading Millennials, what every manager needs to know. And I've convinced my boss to come back and talk to us about it. So hopefully we'll see you next time. Again, you have our contact information. Our website has the support materials available to you, and feel free to contact us with any questions. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Thanks, Christina.
Thank you, Markku.